The boy's voice cut through the supermarket's ambient noise like a blade through silk. Dad, she can't buy a Thanksgiving turkey for her child. Every head in the checkout line turned toward the source. Thomas Grant felt heat rush to his face, but his embarrassment paled compared to what the young woman ahead of them was experiencing. Her eyes, wide with mortification, filled instantly with tears. Thomas watched as she grabbed her daughter's hand and fled, abandoning a grocery basket containing only pasta sauce and chicken. The fluorescent lights caught the glint of tears streaming down her face as she pushed through the exit doors. The supermarket froze in that peculiar moment of collective discomfort that follows an innocent child's brutal honesty. Thomas stood motionless, his 6-year-old son, Ethan, looking up at him in confusion. For the first time in 3 years since Elizabeth's death, something cracked the numbness encasing Thomas's heart. "Daddy, why did she leave so fast? Is she mad at me?" Ethan asked, his small voice tinged with worry. Thomas looked toward the exit, then back at his son. "No, buddy, she's not mad at you." Dorothy, the cashier who had worked at Westfield Market for 30 years, gave Thomas a knowing look as she scanned his items. "That's Megan Collins, works over at Memorial Hospital as a nursing assistant. Been shopping here about 2 years, always with her little girl. Never complains even when life's clearly beating her down." Thomas nodded, the information settling like a weight in his chest. During the drive home to their penthouse overlooking the city skyline, Thomas couldn't shake the image of Megan Collins' face, the naked humiliation and defeat etched across it. His son's question hung in the air between them. "Mommy used to say, we should help people, right, Daddy?" Thomas gripped the steering wheel tighter. Elizabeth had been the generous one, the one who saw people who cared. He'd buried that part of himself when he buried her. The penthouse felt cavernous as they entered, pristine and cold, despite its luxury. Thomas watched Ethan run to his room while Mrs. Chen, their housekeeper, prepared their Thanksgiving dinner in the kitchen. The aroma of roasting turkey filled the space, but the scent only deepened his melancholy. Thomas walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Lights twinkled below in the gathering darkness, thousands of homes where families would gather tomorrow. And somewhere out there was a young woman and her daughter preparing for a Thanksgiving without turkey. He opened his laptop and stared at the screen. Quantum Technologies' quarterly reports awaited his review. Numbers, projections, acquisitions, his life for the past 3 years. Empty achievements that had filled his days but left his soul barren. Thomas closed the laptop and found himself in front of the mantel where Elizabeth's photo stood. Her smile, captured in that frame, seemed to challenge him. He could almost hear her voice. "When did you stop seeing people, Thomas?" Sleep eluded him that night. He tossed in the vast emptiness of their king-sized bed, haunted by 2 pairs of eyes, Elizabeth's in the photograph, and Megan Collins at the supermarket, both filled with emotions he'd been avoiding. Thanksgiving morning dawned clear and cold. Thomas woke to find Ethan standing beside his bed, already dressed. "Daddy, I have an idea." 20 minutes later, they stood in the kitchen with Mrs. Chen, who was preparing enough food for 10 people, though only 2 would eat. Every Thanksgiving since Elizabeth died had been the same elaborate meals, barely touched leftovers, thrown away. "Mrs. Chen," Thomas said, "could we pack all this food to go? Ethan and I want to share it with someone who needs it more than we do." The elderly woman's face softened. She'd watched her employer retreat into himself after his wife's death, mechanically providing for his son, but emotionally absent. This was the first spark of the man she remembered. "Of course, Mr. Grant. I'll prepare everything for transport." Thomas knelt before Ethan, struck by how much his son resembled Elizabeth, the same earnest blue eyes, the same stubborn cowlick at the crown of his head. "The lady and her daughter from the store yesterday. Would you like to bring them our dinner?" Ethan's face lit up with the first genuine smile Thomas had seen in weeks. "Yes, Mommy would have liked that." Thomas felt tears sting his eyes. "You're right, buddy. She would have." Finding Megan Collins proved easier than Thomas expected. Dorothy at the market had mentioned Memorial Hospital, and a quick call established that Megan worked in the pediatric ward. The hospital was closed for the holiday, but the receptionist, moved by Thomas's explanation, provided her address from employee records. An hour later, Thomas parked his modest sedan, the one he used for everyday errands, rather than his Mercedes outside a small apartment building in Riverside. The neighborhood wasn't dangerous, but signs of economic struggle were evident in the peeling paint and aging infrastructure. Ethan clutched a container of dinner rolls as they climbed to the third floor. Thomas balanced the turkey and sides, his heart hammering with each step. "What if she doesn't want to see us, Daddy?" Ethan asked. "Then we'll respect that," Thomas answered. "But I think everyone deserves a proper Thanksgiving dinner." He knocked on apartment 3B, suddenly aware of how presumptuous this mission might seem. Who was he to impose on this woman's life? The door opened a crack. Chain still attached. Megan's face appeared and Thomas watched recognition dawn, followed immediately by mortification. "Oh God," she whispered. "You're the man from the store. I'm so sorry about running out like that. Your son didn't mean any harm." "No, please, I'm the one who should apologize," Thomas said quickly. "What my son said, it was inappropriate, and I should have handled it better. We've brought—" He stopped, realizing how this looked like pity, like charity. "We have too much food," Ethan piped up, rescuing his father. "Mrs. Chen always makes way too much, and Daddy and I were thinking that maybe your daughter would like some turkey after all." Thomas watched Megan's expression shift as she looked down at his son's earnest face. Through the crack in the door, he glimpsed a small apartment. A card table served as their dining space set, with two mismatched plates. On the counter, he saw a pot of pasta and a pan of chicken, their Thanksgiving dinner. "Please," Thomas said softly, "not as charity as neighbors sharing a holiday. My son and I have been eating alone for 3 years now, and every year we throw away enough food to feed 10 people. It would mean a lot to us if you'd let us share it with you." The mention of his solitary meals with his son seemed to shift something in Megan's expression. She unhooked the chain and opened the door wider. "I'm sorry about your situation," she said quietly. "I'm sorry about yesterday," Thomas replied. A little girl appeared behind Megan, her eyes widening when she saw Ethan. "It's the boy from the store." "Hi," Ethan said shyly. "I'm Ethan. We brought turkey." The two children studied each other with curious intensity before the girl smiled. "I'm Lily. Do you want to see my drawing?" "Okay," Ethan said, and just like that, the children disappeared into the small living room, leaving the adults standing awkwardly at the door. "I don't know what to say," Megan admitted. "This is very kind, but I don't even know your name." Thomas Grant, and really you'd be doing us a favor. Ethan's been asking about you and your daughter since yesterday. He was worried he upset you." Megan stepped aside to let him in. The apartment was tiny but immaculately clean. There were no expensive furnishings, but everything was organized and cared for. Children's drawings covered the refrigerator. A small bookshelf held worn paperbacks and children's books. It was humble, but full of love, and Thomas found it more welcoming than his sprawling penthouse. They spent the next hour arranging food on Megan's small counter, reheating everything, setting the table. Thomas noticed how efficiently Megan moved, how her hands were steady and capable, despite being work-worn. She'd changed from her scrubs into jeans and a simple sweater. Without the exhaustion evident in the store, he could see how pretty she was, how young she looked despite the weight of responsibility she carried. The four of them sat around the small card table, and for the first time in 3 years, Thomas felt something like warmth in his chest. Ethan and Lily chattered away, instantly comfortable with each other in the way only children can be. Megan was quiet at first, clearly still processing this surreal turn of events, but gradually she relaxed. "This is really good," Lily said, her mouth full of turkey. "Mommy, this is the best turkey ever." Megan's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "It really is, baby." Thomas caught her eye across the table. "I'm glad we could share it with you." "Why did your wife die?" Lily asked with the blunt curiosity of children. Megan gasped. "Lily, we don't ask questions like that." But Thomas shook his head. "It's okay. She had a heart attack. She was only 28. The doctor said it was a rare condition, something no one knew she had. One day she was fine, and the next, he stopped, his throat closing up. Megan reached across the table and touched his hand briefly. "I'm so sorry. That must have been devastating." "It was. It is." Ethan was only 3. He barely remembers her now, and that might be the worst part. "I remember her smile," Ethan said quietly, "and she smelled like flowers." Thomas's eyes welled up. "Yes, she did. She wore lavender perfume. My daddy left," Lily announced, matching Ethan's revelation with her own. "He said he didn't want to be a daddy anymore." Megan looked mortified. "Lily, sweetie, that's private." "But it's true," Lily said matter-of-factly. "He left when I was 5. I don't remember him much either." The two children looked at each other with understanding. They'd both lost a parent, just in different ways. The rest of the dinner passed with easier conversation. Megan talked about her job at the hospital, about how she'd become a nursing assistant after dropping out of community college when she got pregnant. Thomas talked about his company, though he downplayed his role, saying he worked in tech. He didn't mention being CEO or the money. Somehow, in this small apartment with this struggling single mother, his wealth felt obscene. As evening fell, Thomas knew they should leave. Ethan was getting tired, his head drooping, but Thomas found himself reluctant to go. Reluctant to return to his empty penthouse and empty life. "Thank you," Megan said as she walked them to the door. This was unexpected, but it meant everything. "Lily will remember this Thanksgiving. So will Ethan," Thomas said. He hesitated, then added, "Would it be okay if we stayed in touch? Ethan seems to really like Lily, and he doesn't have many friends." Megan considered this. She should say no. She should maintain boundaries. This man had invaded her life at her lowest moment, had witnessed her shame, and had now fed her and her daughter. But when she looked at Ethan's sweet face, at how happy Lily seemed, she couldn't bring herself to cut off this connection. "Okay," she said, "we could exchange phone numbers. Maybe the kids could play sometime." They exchanged numbers, and Thomas left feeling lighter than he had in years. In the car, Ethan said, "Daddy, I like Lily, and her mommy is nice. Can we see them again?" "I hope so, buddy. I really hope so." Over the next 2 weeks, Thomas found himself thinking about Megan constantly. He texted her a few times, casual messages, asking how she was doing, how Lily was. Megan responded politely but briefly. She was cautious, and he couldn't blame her. Then on a cold December morning, Thomas did something impulsive. He showed up at Memorial Hospital with a complaint of back pain. It wasn't entirely fabricated. Years of sitting at a desk had given him occasional aches, but his real goal was to see Megan. He asked for her specifically, claiming she'd helped a family member before. The receptionist directed him to the outpatient clinic, and 15 minutes later, Megan walked into the examination room. Her eyes widened when she saw him. "Thomas, what are you doing here?" "I have back pain," he said, trying to look convincing. "Chronic issue. Thought I'd get it checked out." Megan narrowed her eyes. She wasn't stupid. "Your back hurts?" "Yes, lower back, right side." "The right side." She moved closer, her professional demeanor taking over. "Stand up. Let me check your range of motion." For the next 10 minutes, she put him through a series of movements and tests. Thomas realized she was calling his bluff. He did have some stiffness, but nothing that would bring someone to urgent care. "You'll live," she said dryly. "Some stretching and over-the-counter pain medication should help. I'll get you an information sheet." "Megan, wait." Thomas caught her arm gently. "Okay, you're right. My back is fine. I came here to see you." She pulled her arm away. Why would you do that?" "Because I can't stop thinking about you," he blurted out, then immediately regretted it. "Too much, too fast. I mean about that day, about Thanksgiving, about how you're doing. I wanted to make sure you and Lily were okay." Megan's expression softened slightly. "We're fine, Thomas. We're always fine. We've been fine for 2 years, and we'll keep being fine." I know you're strong. I saw that. But maybe you don't have to be strong alone all the time." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "What are you suggesting, that we're friends now? That you, a man who can afford an $80 turkey without blinking, understands anything about my life?" "No," Thomas said honestly. "I don't understand, but I'd like to. And Ethan asks about Lily every day. He wants to know when he can see her again." That got her. Megan's face softened at the mention of the children. "There's a park near my place, Riverside Park. Maybe we could take the kids there this weekend. Let them play for a while." Megan should have said no. Every instinct told her to maintain distance to protect herself and Lily from getting attached to people who would eventually leave. Everyone always left. But when she thought about Lily's face lighting up, when she talked about Ethan, about how her daughter had so few friends, so few moments of pure childhood joy, she found herself nodding. Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock, just for an hour. Thomas's face broke into a genuine smile, the first real smile he'd worn since Elizabeth died. "Saturday at 2, I'll be there." As he left the hospital, Thomas felt like a teenager with a crush. It was absurd. He was 49 years old, a CEO, a widower, a father, but he felt alive in a way he hadn't in years. Saturday arrived with clear skies and cold air. Thomas and Ethan arrived at Riverside Park at 1:45, embarrassingly early. Thomas had changed his outfit 3 times, finally settling on jeans and a casual jacket, trying to look approachable rather than wealthy. Megan and Lily arrived right at 2, and Thomas felt his breath catch. Megan wore jeans and an old peacoat, her blonde hair down around her shoulders. She looked young and tired and beautiful, and Thomas realized with startling clarity that he was in trouble. The children ran off immediately to the playground, leaving the adults to follow at a slower pace. They sat on a bench watching the kids climb and slide and laugh. "Thank you for coming," Thomas said. "I know this is strange." "It is strange," Megan agreed. "But Lily has been talking about Ethan non-stop. I think she has a crush on him." Thomas laughed. "Ethan too. He asked me if 7-year-olds can get married." They both chuckled, and some of the tension eased. They talked about small things, the weather, the park, the city. Megan asked what kind of work Thomas did in tech, and he kept his answers vague, saying he worked for a company downtown, managed some projects. It wasn't technically a lie, but it wasn't the full truth either. "What about you?" Thomas asked. "How did you end up as a nursing assistant?" Megan's expression clouded. "I was in community college, studying to be a nurse. Then I got pregnant at 20. Lily's father, Ryan, he seemed excited at first. We got an apartment together, made plans. I took a semester off planning to go back." She paused, her jaw tightening. "But after Lily was born, everything changed. Ryan started staying out late missing work. By the time Lily was 2, we were drowning in bills. I took the nursing assistant job to make ends meet, and Ryan resented me for it, said I was never home, never paid attention to him anymore." She paused again, her jaw tightening. "When Lily was 5, I came home from a double shift and found a note. He'd taken everything valuable from the apartment, emptied our shared bank account, and left. The note said he couldn't handle being a father, that he needed to find himself. I haven't heard from him since. No child support, no phone calls, nothing. Just gone." Thomas felt anger surge through him. "That's unforgivable." "It is what it is," Megan said, but he could hear the hurt underneath. "Lily asks about him sometimes. I don't know what to tell her. How do you explain to a child that her father chose to leave her?" "You tell her the truth," Thomas said quietly, "that sometimes people fail us, that his leaving says everything about his weakness and nothing about her worth." Megan looked at him, really looked at him, and saw understanding in his eyes. "You're a good father, aren't you?" "I try. Some days are harder than others. Ethan has nightmares sometimes. He dreams about Elizabeth, then wakes up and realizes she's gone. He asks me why she left him, and I have to explain that death isn't a choice, that she didn't want to leave. But how do you make a 6-year-old understand that?" They sat in companionable silence. Two broken people trying to raise children while carrying their own grief. On the playground, Ethan and Lily were building a snowman from the light dusting of snow that had fallen the night before, their laughter carrying on the cold air. "They're happy," Megan said softly. "They are," Thomas agreed. "Maybe we're doing something right after all." That 1 hour at the park turned into 2, then 3. When they finally parted ways, Thomas felt reluctant to leave, and he could tell Megan felt the same, though she tried to hide it. Over the next month, the park meetings became a regular Saturday ritual. Sometimes they went for hot chocolate afterward, sitting in a small cafe while the children drew pictures with crayons the waitress provided. Thomas learned that Megan loved to read, but rarely had time. Megan learned that Thomas played piano, though he hadn't touched the instrument since Elizabeth died. They traded stories about their children, their lives, their losses. Thomas never mentioned his wealth. He drove his modest sedan to their meetings, wore ordinary clothes, paid for hot chocolate without flourish. He was careful, so careful, because he sensed that if Megan knew the truth, it would change everything. She'd see him differently, would put up walls he'd been slowly, carefully breaking down. He told himself he'd tell her eventually, but not yet. Not when things were so good, so easy between them. Not when Ethan was smiling again, when he himself was sleeping through the night for the first time in 3 years. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Thomas was working on something else. He'd set up a meeting with the CFO of Memorial Hospital, someone he knew from business circles. He'd structured it as a corporate social responsibility initiative, a new program his company was launching to provide medical debt relief to hospital employees who'd faced catastrophic health expenses for their families. The program was real. Thomas funded it entirely himself, but it was anonymous run through his company's foundation. Megan Collins was the first recipient. Her $43,000 in medical debt was paid in full, wiped clean. He also made some calls to the hospital administration. Quantum Technologies was donating new equipment to Memorial Hospital, and as part of the arrangement, he'd suggested they review their pay scales for nursing assistants. Megan received a promotion to senior nursing assistant with a 30% pay increase and better hours. When she called him crying with joy about her sudden good fortune, Thomas felt guilt twist his stomach. "Thomas, you won't believe it. The hospital paid off my medical debt. Something about a new program for employees who've had family medical emergencies, and they promoted me. I don't have to work double shifts anymore. I can actually have dinner with Lily every night. I can breathe. I can finally breathe. That's amazing, Megan. I'm so happy for you." And he was truly. But the lie sat heavy in his chest. They said it was all anonymous, funded by some tech company's foundation. "I wish I knew who to thank. This changes everything, Thomas. Everything." "You deserve it," Thomas said, and he meant that too. "You've worked so hard. You deserve every good thing." 3 months passed. Winter turned to early spring. The Saturday park meetings continued, but they evolved into more. Sometimes Thomas and Ethan would pick up Megan and Lily and they'd go to the aquarium or the science center, always places where Thomas could pay without it seeming excessive, always careful to maintain the fiction of being an ordinary guy with an ordinary job. Megan was different now. The constant tension she'd carried had eased. She smiled more freely, laughed more easily. She'd even gone shopping for new clothes with her first big paycheck. Thomas thought she'd never looked more beautiful than she did in a simple blue dress she wore to one of their outings. They were becoming a unit, the four of them. Ethan called Megan by her first name, now comfortable with her. Lily had started asking if Thomas could read her bedtime stories sometimes when he dropped them off after their outings. And Thomas found himself falling in love. It crept up on him gradually then, all at once. The way Megan threw her head back when she laughed. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous. The way she looked at Lily with such fierce protective love. The way she listened when he talked about Elizabeth, never jealous, always understanding. The way she'd started touching his arm when they talked small gestures of comfort and connection. One Saturday in April, they took the kids to Patterson Park. The cherry blossoms were blooming and the park was full of families enjoying the spring weather. They'd packed a picnic lunch, and after the children ran off to play, Thomas and Megan sat on a blanket under the pink blooming trees. "This is nice," Megan said, leaning back on her hands, her face turned up to the sun. "I can't remember the last time I felt this relaxed." "You look happy," Thomas observed. "I am happy. The last few months have been like a dream, the job, the debt being cleared, having actual time with Lily," and she paused looking at him, "having you and Ethan in our lives. I didn't expect that. Didn't expect to care about you." Thomas's heart raced. "I care about you too, Megan, more than I probably should." She turned to face him fully. "What does that mean?" "It means that I think about you all the time. It means that Saturday is my favorite day of the week, because I get to see you. It means that Ethan isn't the only one who's happy when we're together." Megan's breath caught. "Thomas, I'm scared. I have Lily to think about. If this is just friendship, that's fine. But if it's something else, if we're heading somewhere else, I need to know because I can't let Lily get attached to you if you're going to walk away." "I'm not walking away," Thomas said firmly. "I haven't felt this alive since Elizabeth died. You brought light back into my life, into Ethan's life. I don't know exactly what this is yet, but I know I don't want it to end." Megan smiled, and it transformed her face. "I don't want it to end either." Thomas reached out and took her hand. It fit perfectly in his small and work-worn, but strong. They sat like that, hands intertwined, watching their children play. And Thomas knew he should tell her the truth, should tell her who he really was. But the moment was so perfect, and he was so afraid of ruining it. 2 weeks later, everything fell apart. The hospital was hosting a charity gala, a fundraiser for new pediatric equipment. All employees were invited, though attendance was optional. Megan had never attended before. She couldn't afford the ticket price or the fancy dress such events required. But this year, as a senior nursing assistant, and with her newfound financial stability, she decided to go. She bought a simple but elegant black dress from a department store and borrowed heels from her neighbor. She was excited, nervous. She'd asked Thomas if he wanted to come as her date, but he declined, saying he had a business commitment that evening. She'd been disappointed but understanding. They still hadn't defined what they were to each other, though the attraction simmered between them with increasing intensity. The gala was held in the grand ballroom of the Harbor Hotel. Megan arrived feeling out of place among doctors and administrators in their designer clothes, but the other nursing assistants were there too, and they clustered together, drinking champagne and marveling at the ice sculptures and elaborate catering. The evening progressed with speeches and presentations. Then the hospital director took the stage to announce a special recognition. Tonight we have the honor of acknowledging one of our city's most generous philanthropists. His company, Quantum Technologies, has donated over $2 million to Memorial Hospital this year, alone funding our new pediatric wing, providing medical debt relief to our staff, and purchasing state-of-the-art equipment. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome CEO Thomas Grant. Megan's champagne glass nearly slipped from her hand. Thomas Grant, CEO. She watched frozen as a man in an impeccable tuxedo walked onto the stage. But it wasn't just any man. It was her Thomas. Her Thomas who wore faded jeans and drove a Toyota. Her Thomas who bought hot chocolate and played with children at the park. Except this, Thomas looked like he belonged on the cover of Forbes magazine. His hair was perfectly styled, his bearing confident and commanding. He smiled and shook hands with the hospital director, accepted an award, gave a brief, eloquent speech about corporate responsibility. Megan felt the room spin around her. People were applauding, but she couldn't hear anything over the roaring in her ears. The medical debt relief program, her promotion. The new equipment, it all clicked into place with devastating clarity. He'd lied to her for 4 months. He'd lied by omission. He'd let her believe he was just a regular guy, let her pour out her heart about her financial struggles, let her feel grateful for mysterious corporate programs that he had created. He'd manipulated everything, controlled everything, while she thought she was finally getting ahead on her own merit. She felt sick, humiliated, used. She set down her glass with shaking hands and headed for the exit. She needed air. She needed to think. She needed to get away from the sound of Thomas Grant, CEO and philanthropist, being praised for his generosity. Outside, the April evening was cool. Megan leaned against the building, her breath coming in short gasps. 4 months. 4 months of growing closer, of sharing her deepest fears and hopes of falling for him. And it was all built on a lie. Megan? She turned to see Thomas striding toward her, still in his tuxedo, his face etched with concern. She held up a hand to stop him. Don't come any closer. Please let me explain. Explain what? Her voice was sharp, brittle. Explain how you lied to me for 4 months. Explain how you manipulated my entire life while I thought I was finally succeeding on my own. Explain how you played me like some charity case. It wasn't like that, Thomas said desperately. I never meant to deceive you. But you did deceive me. Tears were flowing now, hot and angry. You let me believe you were just a regular person. You watched me struggle, watched me worry about money, and all the while you're some billionaire CEO who was pulling strings behind my back. The debt relief, the promotion, it was all you, wasn't it? Thomas's silence was answer enough. Oh God, Megan whispered. I'm so stupid. I actually thought the hospital valued my work. I thought I'd gotten lucky, but it was just you playing God with my life. Megan, please, I was trying to help. You were working yourself to death. You deserve those things. That wasn't your decision to make. Her voice rose. Don't you see? You took away my agency, my dignity. I never asked for your help. I never wanted to be your pet project. I wanted to make it on my own, and you robbed me of that. I fell in love with you, Thomas blurted out. That's why I didn't tell you. At first it was about helping someone in need, but then I got to know you and everything changed. I was terrified that if you knew who I was, you'd see me differently. You'd put up walls, and I was right, wasn't I? Look at you right now. The second you found out, everything changed. Megan laughed bitterly. Of course everything changed. You lied to me, Thomas. Or should I call you Mr. Grant? How am I supposed to trust anything between us now? How do I know any of it was real? Was I just some interesting diversion from your wealthy life? The poor single mom you could play house with on weekends? That's not fair, Thomas said, his own anger rising now. I opened up to you about Elizabeth, about my grief about Ethan. None of that was a lie. My feelings for you aren't a lie. But the foundation they're built on is... Megan said quietly. You didn't give me a choice, Thomas. You made decisions about my life without my consent. That's not love. That's control. She turned away, wrapping her arms around herself. Behind them, the sounds of the gala continued muffled by the thick hotel walls. I need time, she said finally. I need to think about this, about what's real and what was just you playing the hero. Megan, please don't do this. Don't throw away what we have. What do we have? She looked at him with red-rimmed eyes. I thought we had honesty. I thought we had two people who understood each other's pain. But I don't even know who you are. The man I fell for doesn't exist. He was just a role you played. That's not true, Thomas said, his voice breaking. I'm the same person. The money doesn't change who I am. But it changes everything else. Megan started to walk away. Please don't contact me for a while. I need space to figure out how I feel about all of this. She started to walk away, but Thomas caught her arm gently. What about Ethan? What about Lily? They're going to ask why we can't see each other anymore. The mention of the children made Megan's face crumple. That's the worst part. You didn't just lie to me. Our children got attached. Lily asks me every day when she can see Ethan, and now I have to explain that we can't see them anymore because the man I trusted broke that trust. Then don't, Thomas said urgently. Don't punish the kids for my mistakes. Keep bringing Lily to the park. I'll stay away if you want. Just don't take their friendship away too. Megan pulled her arm free. I'll think about it, but right now, I need you to leave me alone. She walked away, and Thomas stood there in his expensive tuxedo, feeling more helpless than he had the day Elizabeth died. At least then, he'd had no control over the situation. This time, he'd destroyed everything good in his life with his own choices. The next 3 weeks were agony. Ethan asked constantly where Megan and Lily were. Thomas tried to explain that they were busy, that they needed some time apart, but Ethan saw through it. Did you make Megan mad, Daddy, like you made Mommy mad sometimes? The innocent question cut deep. Elizabeth and Thomas had fought sometimes the way all couples do, and now Ethan was old enough to remember that sometimes people got angry and needed space. Yes, buddy, I made a mistake and Megan is upset with me. Did you say sorry? I tried to, but sometimes sorry isn't enough. Ethan thought about this seriously. You should try again. Mommy always said you have to keep trying when something is important. Thomas hugged his son close, wondering how a 6-year-old had become wiser than him. You're right. I should keep trying. Meanwhile, Megan was going through her own hell. Lily cried every night asking for Ethan. She didn't understand why they couldn't see their friends anymore. Megan tried to explain that sometimes grown-ups had disagreements, but Lily, with the simplicity of childhood, asked, "But if you like him and he likes you, why can't you just forgive him?" Why couldn't she? Megan lay awake at night wrestling with her anger and her hurt. Yes, Thomas had lied. Yes, he'd manipulated her circumstances. But had he done it maliciously? Had he tried to control her? Or had he genuinely been trying to help? And did his wealth really change who he was as a person? She thought about all their conversations, all the moments they'd shared, the way he'd talked about Elizabeth with such love and grief, the way he was with Ethan, patient and present, the way he'd looked at her like she was something precious. Had all of that been fake? In her more honest moments, Megan admitted to herself that her anger wasn't just about the lying. It was about fear. Fear of being out of her depth in his world. Fear that she wasn't good enough, educated enough, sophisticated enough. Fear that eventually he'd realize it too and leave just like Ryan had left. The lie had given her an excuse to run before she could be abandoned again. 3 weeks after the gala, Megan's neighbor knocked on her door. Mrs. Peterson was an elderly woman who'd lived in the building for 40 years and had taken a grandmotherly interest in Lily. I hate to intrude, dear, Mrs. Peterson said, but Lily has been drawing the same picture over and over. She held up a piece of paper. It showed 4 stick figures holding hands labeled Mommy, Thomas, Lily, and Ethan. She left this in the hallway. I thought you should see it. Megan took the drawing with shaking hands. Lily had drawn it dozens of times. She realized each version a little different, but always the same 4 people, always holding hands. Thank you, Mrs. Peterson. That night, Megan made a decision. She called Thomas. He answered on the first ring. Megan, we need to talk, she said. Really talk, not yell, not run away. Actually talk. Can you come over tomorrow night after Lily goes to bed? Yes, Thomas said immediately. Yes, I'll be there. Thank you for giving me a chance. And the next evening, Thomas arrived at 7:30 after Lily's bedtime. Megan had spent the day preparing what she wanted to say. She'd made tea, though neither of them touched it. They sat on her small couch, a careful distance between them. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Megan began, "about what happened, about why I reacted the way I did, and I realized that while I'm angry about the lying, what I'm really afraid of is the inequality. You have so much money, so much power, and I have nothing. How do we build anything real when the balance is so skewed?" Thomas nodded slowly. "I understand that fear, and you're right that I handled this all wrong. I should have been honest from the beginning. I was a coward, and I'm sorry. But Megan, the money is just money. It doesn't define me any more than your financial situation defines you. When I'm with you, I'm not a CEO. I'm just Thomas, a widowed father trying to figure out how to live again." "But you're not just Thomas," Megan countered. "You're Thomas Grant, CEO of a multi-million-dollar company. You live in a world I can't even imagine. What happens when you get tired of slumming it with the nursing assistant? When you realize that I embarrass you in front of your wealthy friends?" "That would never happen," Thomas said firmly. "Megan, those people mean nothing to me. My company means nothing to me. It's just a job. But you're real. You've been through hell and came out stronger. You raised an amazing daughter by yourself. You work harder than anyone I know. I don't want you despite who you are. I want you because of who you are." Megan felt tears threatening. "I want to believe that, but you have to understand, I've been abandoned before. Ryan left because being with me, being a father, was too hard. What's to stop you from doing the same when the novelty wears off?" Thomas shifted closer, taking her hand. "I can't prove I won't hurt you. I can't promise I'll never make mistakes, but I can promise that I'll never abandon you or Lily. I know what it's like to lose someone. I wouldn't inflict that pain deliberately. And Megan, you need to know something. When Elizabeth died, I shut down. For 3 years, I went through the motions of living. I was there for Ethan physically, but emotionally, I was gone. Meeting you, getting to know you, it woke me up. You gave me my life back. That's not nothing, that's everything." Megan looked at their joined hands. "I fell in love with you," she whispered. "That's why it hurt so much. I'd promised myself I wouldn't do this again, wouldn't risk my heart, wouldn't put Lily in a position to be hurt, but I fell anyway. And when I found out about the lies, it felt like confirmation of my worst fears that I was just a fool again." "You're not a fool," Thomas said intensely. "You're brave and strong and incredible, and I fell in love with you too. So hard that it scares me. I haven't felt this way since Elizabeth. I didn't think I could feel this way again, but here you are, and I love you. I love your strength, your determination, your fierce love for Lily. I love how you make me laugh, how you see through my BS, how you make me want to be better. I love you, Megan Collins." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning and possibility. Megan felt something loosen in her chest, the tight knot of fear and anger beginning to unravel. "I love you too," she said finally. "But Thomas, if we do this, if we try to make this work, you have to promise me something. No more secrets, no more controlling things behind my back. We make decisions together as equals. I don't care about your money. I care about honesty." "I promise," Thomas said. "Complete honesty. No more secrets." He paused, then added with a slight smile, "Though I should probably tell you that I've been going crazy without you. And Ethan has been asking about Lily every single day. He drew her a picture. I have it in my car. It's of them playing at the park, and he wrote 'I miss you' on it in his messy 6-year-old handwriting." Megan laughed through her tears. "Lily has been just as bad. She's drawn about 50 pictures of the 4 of us. Our apartment is wallpapered with them." "The 4 of us," Thomas repeated softly. "I like the sound of that." "So do I," Megan admitted. "It terrifies me, but I like it." Thomas squeezed her hand. "We'll take it slow. We'll figure it out together. No pressure, no expectations. Just us being honest and trying our best." Megan nodded, then surprised herself by leaning forward and kissing him. It was soft and tentative, their first kiss, after months of growing closeness. Thomas's hand came up to cup her face, gentle and reverent. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. "So," Thomas said, "can we tell the kids they can see each other again? Because Ethan's birthday is next week, and he wants Lily there more than anything else." "Yes," Megan said. "We can tell them, but Thomas, I mean it. Slow. I need to trust you again, and that's going to take time." "I have all the time in the world," Thomas assured her. For you, I'd wait forever. The next Saturday, they met at the park again. When Lily saw Ethan, she ran to him and threw her arms around him. Ethan hugged her back just as fiercely. I missed you, Lily exclaimed. I missed you too, Ethan said. My dad said we had a disagreement, but it's okay now. My mom said that too, Lily said. Grown-ups are weird. Yeah, Ethan agreed. But I'm glad we're friends again. Thomas and Megan watched them standing close, but not touching, still finding their way back to each other. One day at a time, Megan said. One day at a time, Thomas agreed. Over the next few months, they rebuilt their relationship on a foundation of honesty. Thomas took Megan to his penthouse apartment, let her see his real life. She was overwhelmed at first by the luxury, but Thomas showed her that it was just a place, just things. What mattered was the people in it. Megan invited Thomas to her workplace, introduced him to her colleagues, let him see her world too. He met her as an equal, not as the hospital's benefactor. And slowly, Megan began to believe that he truly didn't care about the differences in their backgrounds. They went on real dates, just the two of them, while Mrs. Peterson watched the children. Fancy restaurants where Thomas had to teach Megan which fork to use, and she laughed at herself instead of feeling ashamed. Bowling alleys and dive bars where Thomas was hopeless, and Megan excelled, evening the playing field. They learned each other all over again this time, without pretense. Ethan's nightmares about his mother decreased. He still missed Elizabeth, still talked about her, but the crushing grief had eased. Having Megan in his life didn't replace his mother, but it showed him that love could exist in multiple forms, that family could be built as well as born. Lily blossomed under Thomas's attention. He helped her with homework, attended her school events, treated her exactly as he treated Ethan. For the first time in her memory, she had a father figure who stayed, who showed up, who kept his promises. 6 months after their reconciliation, Thomas and Megan were having dinner at his penthouse while the children watched a movie in the living room. They had just finished eating when Thomas said, I want to ask you something. Megan's heart jumped. Okay, move in with me. You and Lily move in with us. Megan's eyes widened. Thomas, that's a huge step. I know, but Megan, we're here every weekend anyway. Ethan and Lily ask constantly why they can't live together, and I don't want to waste any more time. Life is short. Elizabeth's death taught me that. When you find something real, something worth fighting for, you hold on to it. But what about Lily's school? Her friends might commute to work. There's a great school 3 blocks from here. I've already checked. And the hospital is actually closer from this apartment than from yours. As for her friends, she can still see them. We'll make it work, but Megan, I need you to know this isn't about me taking care of you. This is about us building a life together, equal partners. I love you, and I love Lily. Let us be a family. Megan felt tears welling up. I love you too. And yes, okay, we'll move in. But Thomas, I'm paying rent. I don't care if you own the place. I need to contribute. Thomas smiled. How about instead of rent you cover groceries? I'm a terrible grocery shopper. I buy expensive organic everything and half of it goes bad. Megan laughed. Deal. I'm excellent at meal planning and bargain shopping. Perfect. See, equal partners. You bring skills I don't have. They told the children that night. Ethan and Lily screamed with joy, jumping up and down, hugging each other and their parents. We're going to be a real family, Lily shouted. We already are, sweetheart, Megan said, pulling her daughter close. We already are. The move happened over the next month. Megan gave notice on her apartment, packed up their modest belongings. Thomas insisted she keep everything that they'd find space for all of it. Her worn furniture mixed with his expensive pieces, creating something uniquely theirs. Lily's drawings went up on the walls alongside Ethan's. Megan's books filled a bookshelf next to Thomas's business volumes. It wasn't always easy. They had disagreements about parenting styles, about money, about whose turn it was to do the dishes. Megan struggled with accepting help with the sheer amount of space and resources now available to her. Thomas struggled with his tendency to try to fix everything, to throw money at problems instead of talking through them. But they worked through it together. They went to couples counseling, determined to build something lasting. They really talked about their fears and hopes. They learned to fight fair and to apologize sincerely. They learned to be a team. One evening in early June, Thomas and Megan attended a charity event at the hospital. This time, Thomas was Megan's date, and she walked in with her head held high, her hand in his. The other nursing assistants watched in awe as their colleague arrived with Thomas Grant, the handsome billionaire CEO who had donated millions to the hospital. As they mingled with doctors and administrators, Thomas kept Megan close his hand at the small of her back, introducing her proudly to everyone they met. But he noticed her tense up when an elegantly dressed woman approached them, a glass of champagne in hand. "Thomas, how wonderful to see you here again. It's been ages." "Diane, good to see you," Thomas said politely. "This is my partner, Megan Collins. Megan, this is Diane Hartley. She sits on the board of several charitable foundations." "How nice," Diane said, barely glancing at Megan before turning back to Thomas. "I was hoping to speak with you about a fundraising event we're planning for the fall. We'd love to have Quantum as a sponsor." "You'll need to talk to our community outreach team," Thomas said. "Megan and I are here strictly as guests tonight." "Oh, but surely you have some influence," Diane pressed, touching his arm. "For old time's sake." Megan stiffened beside him, and Thomas felt a surge of protectiveness. "Actually, Diane, all donation decisions are made by committee now. I'm trying to step back from the day-to-day operations of the company. But if you'll excuse us, I promised Megan a dance." He guided Megan away toward the small dance floor where a few couples were swaying to the music of the live band. "Old time's sake," Megan asked as he pulled her into his arms. "She's the ex-wife of a college friend," Thomas explained. "We dated briefly before I met Elizabeth. It was nothing serious." Megan nodded, but he could still feel the tension in her body. "She was dismissing you," Thomas said softly. "I'm sorry about that. Some people in my circle can be elitist." "I noticed," Megan said dryly. "She looked at me like I was the help." "Her loss," Thomas said firmly, "because anyone who takes the time to know you realizes how extraordinary you are." Megan relaxed slightly, resting her head on his shoulder as they moved to the music. "Is it always going to be like this?" she asked quietly. "Will I always be the nursing assistant who somehow landed the rich guy? Only to people whose opinions don't matter," Thomas said. "Look around, Megan. Do you see Dr. Chen over there? She's been watching us all night with the biggest smile. And there's Joe from maintenance giving me a thumbs up. The people who actually know you, who've worked alongside you, they're happy for us." Megan looked around and saw he was right. Her colleagues were watching them with warm smiles, not judgment. "Besides," Thomas continued, "I'm not asking you to fit into my world. We're creating our own world together, and in our world, what matters is that we love each other, we're good to each other, and we're raising our children to be kind, honest people." Megan looked up at him, her eyes soft. "When did you get so wise?" "I had a good teacher," Thomas said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "A nursing assistant who showed me what real strength looks like." And a week later, Megan was preparing dinner in their kitchen when Thomas walked in looking troubled. He'd just returned from picking Ethan up from a play date at a friend's house. "Everything okay?" she asked. "I'm not sure," Thomas said, sitting at the kitchen island. "Ethan's friend's mother said something strange when I picked him up. She asked if I was aware that Lily's father had been seen around the school." Megan's hands stilled. "What? She said a man was asking questions about Lily, saying he was her father. She thought I should know." "That's impossible," Megan said, her voice tight. "Ryan hasn't been in contact for 2 years. He doesn't even know where Lily goes to school." "Maybe it's nothing," Thomas said, but he didn't sound convinced. "Maybe it was a misunderstanding." But the next day, Lily came home from school and said, "I saw my daddy today." Megan's blood ran cold. "What, where?" "Outside school. He was watching from across the street. He waved at me, but when I waved back, he walked away really fast." Megan and Thomas exchanged worried glances. That night after the children were in bed, they discussed what to do. "I don't understand," Megan said, pacing the living room. "Why would he show up now, after 2 years of nothing?" "I don't know," Thomas said, "but I think we should be cautious. I'll call the school tomorrow, make sure they know not to let Lily leave with anyone but us." "Do you think we need to be worried?" Megan asked, fear evident in her voice. Thomas pulled her into his arms. "We'll take precautions, but try not to worry too much yet. We don't know what he wants." They didn't have to wait long to find out. 3 days later, as Thomas was leaving his office, his assistant called out to him. "Mr. Grant, there's a man here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he's quite insistent. Says his name is Ryan Mitchell." Thomas stopped. Ryan, Lily's father. "Send him in," Thomas said, his mind racing. What could the man possibly want? Ryan Mitchell was not what Thomas expected. He'd pictured someone rough around the edges, someone whose appearance would match the callousness of abandoning his family. But the man who walked into his office was clean-cut, wearing a well-tailored suit with a confident smile that immediately set Thomas on edge. "Mr. Grant," Ryan said, extending his hand, "thank you for seeing me. I'm Ryan Mitchell." "I know who you are," Thomas said, coolly shaking the hand briefly. "What I don't know is why you're here or how you found me." Ryan smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I've been looking for Megan and my daughter. Imagine my surprise when I found out they're living with Thomas Grant, CEO of Quantum Technologies. It wasn't hard to put two and two together." "What do you want?" Thomas asked bluntly. Ryan settled into a chair across from Thomas's desk uninvited. "Straight to business? I like that. Well, Mr. Grant, I want to see my daughter. I've been away for a while getting my life together. Now I'm back, and I want to be part of Lily's life again." "You abandoned them," Thomas said, anger simmering just below the surface. "You left Megan with nothing. You emptied their bank accounts. You haven't paid a cent of child support in 2 years. And now you just want to walk back into their lives." "People change," Ryan said smoothly. "I've cleaned up my act. I have a good job now. I can provide for Lily." "She's already provided for," Thomas said. "She has a home, a family who loves her stability. What can you offer her that she doesn't already have?" Something dark flickered in Ryan's eyes. "I'm her father. I have rights." "Rights you forfeited when you walked out on your responsibilities," Thomas countered. "If you genuinely care about Lily's well-being, you'll consider the harm your sudden reappearance could cause. She's happy, Ryan. She's thriving." "With you playing daddy?" Ryan's voice took on an edge. "I've been watching you know. I've seen how you've moved in on my family. How long did you wait after finding them?" "A month." "2 before deciding you could just replace me." Thomas felt his temper rising but kept his voice steady. "This isn't about me replacing anyone. This is about what's best for Lily, and for Megan." "Ah, yes, Megan," Ryan leaned forward. "Does she know about your little arrangement with the hospital? How you paid off her debt, got her that promotion? I did some digging." "Mr. Grant, you've been quite the white knight." Thomas stilled. "How do you know about that?" Ryan smiled again, a predatory gleam in his eye. "I have my sources. I wonder how Megan would feel, knowing her perfect new man has been manipulating her life from day one. Or maybe she already knows and doesn't care. The money must be worth it." Thomas stood, his patience gone. "I think this conversation is over. If you want to discuss visitation rights with Lily, have your lawyer contact mine. But I'm warning you, Ryan, if you're planning to use Lily as a pawn to get at Megan or at my money, you'll regret it." Ryan stood too, adjusting his cuffs. "Strong words, Mr. Grant, but I'm not going anywhere. I'll be seeing my daughter one way or another. And as for Megan, well, she and I have history, deep history. You'd be surprised how easily old flames can reignite." He walked to the door, then turned back with a smirk. "By the way, your son seems like a nice kid. Ethan Wright, I saw him at school with Lily. Spitting image of you." The implied threat turned Thomas's blood to ice. Ryan left before he could respond, the door closing softly behind him. Thomas stood frozen for a moment, then reached for his phone. He had to warn Megan, and he had to make sure both children were safe. As he dialed, a sense of foreboding settled over him. Ryan Mitchell wasn't just a ghost from Megan's past, coming back to claim a role in his daughter's life. He was a threat, and Thomas would do whatever it took to protect his family. What Thomas didn't know was that Ryan had much more than visitation rights on his mind, and the game he was playing had higher stakes than anyone realized. Thomas's call to Megan went straight to voicemail. Heart pounding, he tried again while gathering his things from his desk. Still no answer. He called the penthouse next. Mrs. Chen answered on the third ring. "Mrs. Chen, are the children home from school?" "Yes, Mr. Grant. Miss Lily and Master Ethan are doing homework at the kitchen table. Would you like to speak with them?" Relief flooded through him. "No, that's all right. Is Megan there?" "No, sir. She called to say her shift was running late. She should be home in an hour or so. When she arrives, please ask her to call me immediately. It's urgent." Thomas ended the call and headed for the elevator, his mind racing. Ryan's sudden appearance and veiled threats made him uneasy. The man clearly wanted something, and Thomas doubted it was simply to reconnect with his daughter. 20 minutes later, Thomas pulled into the hospital parking garage. He needed to warn Megan in person. As he walked through the hospital corridors toward the pediatric ward, he pulled out his phone to try calling her again. Just as he rounded the corner, he saw her. Megan was standing at the end of the hallway, her back to him. She was talking to someone, her posture rigid. As Thomas drew closer, his stomach dropped. Ryan Mitchell stood before her, smiling that same calculating smile he'd worn in Thomas's office. "Megan," Thomas called out. She turned her face pale with shock. "Thomas, what are you doing here? I came to find you. I've been trying to call." He moved to her side, placing a protective arm around her waist. "I see you've met Ryan." "Met him again," she corrected, her voice shaking. "He was waiting for me when my shift ended." Ryan's smile widened. "Just catching up with an old friend. It's been too long." 2 years isn't long enough," Megan said coldly. "What are you doing here, Ryan?" "Why now?" "I told you I've changed. I want to see my daughter." Ryan's gaze shifted to Thomas. "As I was explaining to Mr. Grant earlier today." Megan looked up at Thomas in confusion. "You met with him. He showed up at my office," Thomas explained, keeping his eyes on Ryan. "Uninvited. You two have had your little chat," Megan said to Ryan, her voice stronger now. "Now I'd like you to leave. If you want to discuss visitation with Lily, you can contact me through a lawyer." Ryan's smile faded slightly. "Always so formal, Megan. This doesn't have to be adversarial. We were a family once." "A family you abandoned?" she retorted. "You forfeited any right to call us that when you emptied our bank accounts and disappeared." A flash of anger crossed Ryan's face before his smooth mask returned. "Water under the bridge. People make mistakes. I've grown up a lot since then." "So have I," Megan said, "and I've learned not to trust men who disappear when things get difficult." Ryan's eyes hardened. "I'm still Lily's father. I have legal rights." "Rights you'll need to exercise through proper channels," Thomas interjected. "Now if you'll excuse us, we're going home to our children." Thomas emphasized the last word deliberately, watching as Ryan's jaw clenched. "This isn't over," Ryan said quietly, "not by a long shot." He walked away, leaving Thomas and Megan standing in the now empty hospital corridor. "Are you all right?" Thomas asked, turning to face Megan fully. She nodded, though her hands were trembling. "Just shocked. I never thought he'd come back." "What did he say to you, Thomas? At your office?" "Nothing specific, but I got the impression he wants more than just to see Lily. The timing is too convenient." "What do you mean? He disappears for 2 years without a word, then suddenly reappears right when you've moved in with me." Thomas shook his head. "It feels calculated." Megan's eyes widened with realization. "You think he knows about your money?" "I'm certain of it. He mentioned the debt relief program and your promotion. He's been doing his research." Megan leaned against the wall, processing this information. "So what do we do? For now, we go home and make sure the kids are safe. Tomorrow I'll call my lawyer and have him look into what legal rights Ryan might still have regarding Lily." Thomas took her hand. "We'll handle this, Megan. Together." She nodded, squeezing his hand. "Together." That night after the children were asleep, Thomas and Megan sat in the living room discussing their options. Thomas had poured them each a glass of wine, though neither had touched theirs. "My lawyer says that since Ryan has had no contact and provided no support for over 2 years, his parental rights have been effectively abandoned," Thomas explained, "but legally he's still Lily's father. He could petition for visitation." "Could he get custody?" Megan asked, her greatest fear voiced at last. "It's highly unlikely. Courts favor stability and the status quo, especially when a child is thriving. Lily has a stable home, she's doing well in school, she has consistent routines. No judge would uproot her from that environment to place her with a father who abandoned her." "But he could still force his way back into her life." Megan ran a hand through her hair in frustration. "I don't want Lily around him, Thomas. You didn't know him before. He was manipulative, selfish. He could be charming when he wanted something, but when he didn't get his way..." She trailed off, old memories surfacing. Thomas moved closer, taking her hand. "Did he hurt you, Megan?" She hesitated. "Not physically, but emotionally." "Yes, he was always making me feel like I wasn't good enough, like I was lucky he stayed with me. When I got pregnant, he acted supportive, but he resented Lily from the moment she was born. Said she took all my attention, that I didn't care about him anymore." "That's why you reacted so strongly when you found out about what I did," Thomas said quietly. "The debt relief, the promotion. It felt like control." "Yes, Megan admitted. Ryan always made decisions for us, telling me it was for my own good because I couldn't be trusted to make the right choices. When you did something similar, it triggered those old feelings, Thomas finished for her. I'm so sorry, Megan. I never meant to make you feel that way. I know that now. She squeezed his hand. But I need you to understand why I'm so afraid of letting Ryan back into our lives. He doesn't care about Lily. He never did. This is about something else. I believe you, Thomas said, and I promise you we're going to figure out what he really wants and put a stop to it. Megan looked at him, eyes filled with determination and fear in equal measure. What if he tries to take her? Thomas pulled her close. He won't get near her. I'm having security measures installed at the penthouse tomorrow. I've also spoken with the school about updating their approved pickup list. Only you, me, and Mrs. Chen are authorized to collect the children. Megan nodded against his chest, drawing strength from his certainty. I can't lose her, Thomas. You won't, he promised. We won't. The next week passed in a tense calm. Ryan made no further appearances, but his presence loomed over them like a storm cloud. Thomas hired a private investigator to look into Ryan's activities over the past 2 years and his current situation. The PI's report arrived on Friday afternoon. Thomas read it in his office, his concern growing with each page. Ryan Mitchell had spent the last 2 years working for a series of investment firms, each employment ending abruptly amid accusations of embezzlement and fraud. None had pressed charges, likely paid off to keep quiet, but the pattern was clear. Ryan had a history of targeting wealthy individuals and companies, gaining their trust, then exploiting them financially. Most concerning was Ryan's current employment with BlackRock Securities, a rival firm that had been trying to acquire Quantum Technologies' latest security software for months. The connection was too convenient to be coincidental. Thomas called Megan immediately. I think I know what Ryan's after, he said when she answered. It's not about Lily. It's about getting access to Quantum through us. What do you mean? Thomas explained what the PI had discovered, finishing with, BlackRock has been trying to steal our new quantum encryption software for months. Having someone close to me, someone with access to my home, would be invaluable to them. And you think Ryan is working for them to spy on you? It fits. His sudden interest in reconnecting with Lily, the timing of his appearance right after you moved in with me, his knowledge of my connection to the hospital programs. He's been watching us gathering information. That's disturbing, Megan said. But if you're right, what does this mean for Lily? It means his interest in her is a pretense. Once he gets what he wants, he'll likely disappear again. That would break her heart, Megan said softly. She's been asking about him since she spotted him at school. Part of her still wants her daddy back. The pain in her voice made Thomas's chest tighten. I know, and I'm sorry. No child should have to go through that kind of rejection twice. So what do? I think it's time we turned the tables on Ryan Mitchell, Thomas said. If he wants to play games, let's make sure he understands who he's playing with. The opportunity came sooner than expected. That evening, as the family sat down to dinner, the penthouse intercom buzzed. Mr. Grant, the concierge's voice came through the speaker. There's a Mr. Mitchell here to see Ms. Collins. He says it's regarding their daughter. Thomas and Megan exchanged looks. The children were at the table, watching curiously. Send him up, Thomas said after a moment. We'll meet him in the lobby. Megan knelt before Lily. Sweetie, Thomas and I need to talk to someone downstairs. Stay here with Ethan and Mrs. Chen, okay? We won't be long. Lily nodded, though her eyes were questioning. Is it about me? We'll talk about it when we get back, Megan promised, kissing her daughter's forehead. In the private lobby outside the penthouse elevator, Thomas and Megan waited. When the doors opened, Ryan stepped out, looking smug and entirely too comfortable. Nice place, he commented, looking around at the marble floors and tasteful artwork. Very affluent. What do you want, Ryan? Megan asked directly. Why are you here? To see my daughter, of course. Ryan smiled. I thought maybe we could work out a visitation arrangement, something informal to start. No need to involve lawyers if we can be civil about this. And why would we do that? Thomas asked. Given your track record of abandonment and your sudden convenient interest in fatherhood, Ryan's smile hardened. Careful, Grant. You're not her father, no matter how much money you spend trying to buy yourself a ready-made family. Megan stepped forward, anger flashing in her eyes. Don't you dare question what Thomas means to Lily. He's been more of a father to her in 6 months than you were in 5 years. Touching, Ryan sneered. The loyal girlfriend defending her meal ticket. Thomas placed a restraining hand on Megan's arm as she started forward. "Let me be very clear," Thomas said, his voice deadly calm. "I know exactly who you are, Ryan Mitchell. I know about your time at Meridian Investments, at Westlake Capital, and now at BlackRock Securities. I know about the fraud allegations, the embezzlement, all of it." Ryan's confident facade faltered. "You've been checking up on me." "Of course I have. Did you really think I'd let someone with your history anywhere near my family without doing my homework?" "Your family?" Ryan scoffed, but there was uncertainty in his eyes now. "Yes, my family," Thomas stated firmly. "Megan, Lily, and Ethan. And here's what you need to understand. I protect what's mine. You're not here for Lily. You're here because BlackRock sent you to get close to me to gain access to Quantum's encryption software." Ryan's face went blank with surprise before he could mask it. "Ah, so I'm right," Thomas continued. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave now, and you're not coming back. You're not going to contact Megan or Lily or me or anyone associated with us. Because if you do, I will make sure that every firm on Wall Street knows exactly what kind of man you are." "You can't prove anything," Ryan said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Can't I?" Thomas removed an envelope from his jacket and handed it to Ryan. "Those are copies of internal memos from your previous employers detailing the accusations against you. Memos that never made it to the authorities because you paid them off. I wonder what BlackRock would think if these landed on the CEO's desk." Ryan flipped through the papers, his face paling. "How did you get these?" "I have resources you can't imagine, Ryan. Walk away now, and these stay private. Keep pushing, and not only will your career be over, but you'll likely face criminal charges." Ryan's confidence had completely evaporated, now replaced by barely controlled panic. "This is blackmail." "No," Thomas corrected. "This is protecting my family from a con man who's using his own daughter as a pawn. Make your choice, Ryan. Walk away or face the consequences." For a long moment, Ryan stared at them, calculation clear in his eyes. Finally, he handed the envelope back to Thomas. "You win for now, but don't think this is over, Grant. Nobody threatens me and gets away with it." "That sounds remarkably like a threat," Thomas observed. "Something else to add to my file on you." Ryan's jaw clenched in frustration. He looked at Megan. "Tell Lily I came by, would you? Tell her Daddy wanted to see her." "No," Megan said firmly. "I won't let you use her as a weapon. If you genuinely want to be part of her life, you'll need to prove it through consistent, responsible behavior over time. And you'll need to go through proper legal channels." Ryan's face twisted with anger, but he controlled himself. "This isn't the last you'll see of me," he promised, stepping back into the elevator. As the doors closed on his furious face, Megan sagged against Thomas in relief. "Do you think that worked?" she asked. "For now," Thomas replied. "But men like Ryan don't give up easily. We need to be prepared for him to try again with a different angle. How do we protect Lily from this? She's going to ask questions. We tell her the truth in an age-appropriate way," Thomas said. "That her father came by, but he's still figuring out how to be a good dad. And until he does, we need to be careful." Megan nodded. "I just hate that she has to deal with this at all." "I know, but she has us, and we're not going anywhere." They returned to the penthouse to find Lily waiting anxiously. The moment they entered, she ran to Megan. "Was that my dad? Did he want to see me?" Megan and Thomas exchanged glances. This was the moment of truth. Megan knelt down to Lily's level, taking her small hands. "Yes, that was your father, Ryan. He did ask about you." Hope bloomed in Lily's eyes. "Is he coming up? Can I see him?" "Not today, sweetheart," Megan said gently. "Your dad has been away for a very long time, and he has a lot of growing up to do before he's ready to be a good father. But he wants to see me, right?" Lily's voice trembled. "He misses me." Megan struggled to find the right words, tears threatening. Thomas knelt beside them, his presence steady and strong. "Lily," he said softly, "sometimes adults make choices that hurt the people they're supposed to love. It doesn't mean they don't love them, but it means they aren't ready for the responsibility of showing that love the right way. Like when Ethan broke his toy robot because he was angry even though he loved it," Lily asked. Thomas smiled gently. "Something like that, yes. Your father made choices that hurt you and your mom, not because he didn't love you, but because he wasn't ready to be a father. And even though he says he's ready now, we need to make sure that's true before you spend time with him." "Because you want to keep me safe," Lily said, understanding in her young face. "Exactly," Megan said, stroking her daughter's hair. "We love you so much, and will always protect you, even when it's hard. Lily thought about this for a moment, then looked at Thomas. If my real dad can't be a good dad yet, is it okay that I think of you as my dad too? Thomas felt his heart swell with emotion. I would be honored, Lily, but you should know you can have more than one dad. If Ryan does the work to become a good father, there's room in your heart for both of us. Lily nodded solemnly, then wrapped her arms around Thomas's neck. I love you, Thomas, Dad. I love you too, Lily Pad, he whispered, using the nickname he'd given her during their park days. Over Lily's head, Thomas met Megan's tear-filled eyes. In that moment, despite the threat still looming, they felt like a true family, bound not by blood, but by choice and love. The following week passed without incident. No sign of Ryan, no unusual activity around the penthouse or at the children's school. Thomas maintained heightened security, nonetheless unwilling to take any chances with his family's safety. At work, he accelerated the process of stepping back from day-to-day operations at Quantum. He'd been planning this transition for months, but Ryan's appearance added urgency to his desire to prioritize family over business. On Thursday afternoon, Thomas was in a board meeting when his assistant interrupted with an urgent message. BlackRock Securities had just announced a breakthrough in quantum encryption technology, one that bore striking similarities to Quantum's proprietary software. Thomas immediately called an emergency meeting with his security team and legal counsel. The evidence was circumstantial but compelling. Somehow, information about their technology had been leaked. How could this happen? Thomas demanded. Our security protocols are airtight. His chief of security looked uncomfortable. We're investigating now, sir. The breach appears to have originated from within the company. An inside job, Thomas said grimly. When did this happen? Based on the complexity of what BlackRock is claiming to have developed, they would have needed our specs at least 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, right when Ryan Mitchell had reappeared in their lives. Thomas's phone buzzed with a message from the private investigator he'd hired. Mitchell resigned from BlackRock this morning, cleaned out his office, and disappeared. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Ryan hadn't given up after their confrontation. He'd already had what he came for. Thomas called Megan immediately. Are you and the children at home? He asked the moment she answered. Yes, we just got back from picking them up from school. Why? What's wrong? I'm coming home now. Don't open the door for anyone but me. Thomas, you're scaring me. Just a precaution, he assured her, trying to keep the tension from his voice. I'll explain everything when I get there. Thomas ended the call and turned to his chief of security. I want a team at my residence now. Full protection detail. Yes, sir. What about you? I'm heading there myself, and Jerry, make sure they're discreet. I don't want to frighten my family. Thomas arrived home 20 minutes later to find the security team already in place, professional and unobtrusive. Inside the penthouse, Megan was waiting, her face tight with worry. What's happening? She asked as soon as he entered. Thomas guided her to the living room, checking first that the children weren't within earshot. They were in Ethan's room, absorbed in a video game. BlackRock Securities just announced a new encryption technology that's suspiciously similar to what we've been developing at Quantum, he explained. And Ryan resigned from BlackRock this morning, disappeared without a trace. Megan's hand flew to her mouth. You think he stole it somehow? Used us to get to your company's secrets? It's the only explanation that makes sense, but what I can't figure out is how. He never had access to my home office, never touched my computers. A thought struck him suddenly. Megan, did Lily ever talk to Ryan when she saw him outside the school, before we knew he was back? She said they waved at each other, but that he walked away quickly. Why? Thomas moved to the window, scanning the street below. Because I think he might have given her something. A gift, maybe, or a toy. Megan paled. You think he used Lily to spy on us? It's possible. Corporate espionage has become incredibly sophisticated. A small listening device, a camera disguised as a toy. If he got something into our home through Lily. I'll check her room, Megan said immediately. Together, they went to Lily's bedroom and began a careful examination of her possessions. Nothing seemed out of place or unusual until Megan reached the shelf where Lily kept her most treasured items. Thomas, she said quietly, holding up a small stuffed bear. This is new. I don't recognize it. Thomas took the bear, examining it carefully. It looked ordinary enough, a simple brown teddy bear with a red bow tie. But when he pressed its stomach, instead of the typical mechanical, I love you, or similar phrase, there was only silence. When did Lily get this? he asked. I don't know, Megan admitted. She has so many stuffed animals. I didn't notice a new one. Thomas turned the bear over in his hands, feeling along the seams. There, almost imperceptible, was a small irregularity in the stitching at the back of the head. Found it, he said grimly. Using his pocket knife, he carefully opened the seam and extracted a tiny black device, no larger than a button. Recording and transmitting device, military grade. This thing could pick up conversations from across the room. Megan sat heavily on Lily's bed. He used his own daughter, and now that he has what he wanted, he's gone again, Thomas finished, leaving her to deal with another abandonment. What do we do now? Megan asked, her voice hollow. Now we make sure he can't hurt any of us again. Thomas pocketed the device. I'll have my team sweep the entire apartment for any other bugs. As for Quantum, our legal department is already preparing to challenge BlackRock's patent claim. With this device as evidence, we can prove corporate espionage. And Lily? What do we tell her about why her father disappeared again? Thomas sat beside Megan, taking her hand. We tell her that sometimes people make promises they can't keep, that it's not her fault, and we remind her that she has a family right here who will never leave her. Megan leaned against his shoulder, drawing strength from his steadiness. I hate that she has to learn this lesson so young. Children are resilient, Thomas said, especially when they know they're loved, and Lily knows that Megan, she knows. The next month was a whirlwind of legal proceedings. Quantum Technologies filed a corporate espionage lawsuit against BlackRock Securities with Ryan Mitchell, named as a co-defendant. The evidence was damning, especially once the FBI got involved and traced the bug found in Lily's teddy bear to a known supplier of industrial espionage equipment. Ryan himself remained elusive, having apparently fled the country. Interpol was now involved in the search, with evidence suggesting he had escaped to a non-extradition country with a substantial payoff from BlackRock. Through it all, Thomas and Megan worked to maintain normalcy for the children. They were honest with Lily about her father's actions in terms she could understand, and made sure she knew none of it was her fault. The little girl had been sad but resilient, finding comfort in the stable family unit that surrounded her. One evening in late summer, as Thomas was reading bedtime stories to both children, now sharing a room by their own insistence, Lily asked the question they'd been expecting. Is my real dad a bad person? Thomas set the book aside, choosing his words carefully. People aren't simply good or bad, Lily. They make good choices and bad choices. Your father made some very bad choices that hurt people, including you and your mom. That doesn't mean he's all bad, but it does mean that right now, he's not safe to be around. Will I ever see him again? There was both fear and longing in her voice. I don't know, Thomas answered honestly. But what I do know is that no matter what happens with him, you will always have me and your mom and Ethan. We're your family, and nothing can change that. Ethan, who had been listening quietly, reached over and took Lily's hand. When I miss my real mom, I think about how she's still watching over me from heaven. And even though your dad isn't in heaven, he's still your dad, even if he's not here. Thomas marveled at his son's wisdom. At 6 years old, Ethan understood what many adults struggled with, that love could transcend absence, that family connections remained, even when physically severed. Thank you, Ethan, Lily said softly, squeezing his hand. I'm glad you're my brother now. Me too, Ethan said with a grin. Even if you do steal my Lego sometimes. The children giggled, the serious moment passing as quickly as it had come. Thomas finished the bedtime story, tucked them both in, and turned out the light. As he stood in the doorway watching their peaceful faces, he felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him. These children, so resilient and loving, despite the losses they'd experienced, were teaching him as much as he was teaching them. About forgiveness, about moving forward, about finding joy even after heartbreak. Thanksgiving arrived again exactly 1 year after that fateful day in the supermarket. Thomas stood in the kitchen of the penthouse, watching as Megan directed their small army of helpers. This year, instead of Mrs. Chen cooking a meal for 2 that would mostly go to waste, they were preparing a feast for 20. The guest list included Megan's colleagues from the hospital, some of Thomas's closest friends, and even Dorothy from the supermarket, whose chance remark had set this whole journey in motion. The children were helping make place cards at the dining room table, more interested in the glitter and stickers than in neat handwriting. Their laughter echoed through the apartment, a sound that still made Thomas pause in wonder sometimes. Megan caught his eye across the kitchen and smiled a private moment amid the cheerful chaos. She was different now from the woman he'd first met a year ago. Still strong, still independent, but with a softness that came from security, from knowing she didn't have to fight every battle alone anymore. Thomas was different too. The numb, hollow man who had moved through life like a ghost was gone. In his place stood someone fully present, fully engaged with his life and the people in it. As the guests began to arrive, Thomas watched his home fill with light and laughter. Dorothy brought homemade cranberry sauce and hugged both Thomas and Megan like old friends. Megan's colleagues from the hospital arrived bearing wine and stories. Thomas's friends, initially surprised by his transformation from workaholic to family man, quickly warmed to Megan and the children. When everyone was seated around the extended dining table, Thomas stood to offer a toast. Looking around at the faces, some new in his life, some long-standing, but all important, he felt a fullness in his chest that had nothing to do with the feast before them. A year ago today, he began, my son made an observation in a supermarket that changed all of our lives. He smiled at Ethan, who beamed back. He noticed a young woman who couldn't afford a Thanksgiving turkey for her daughter, and in his innocent honesty, he pointed it out to me. Thomas looked at Megan now, her eyes shining with unshed tears. What seemed like an embarrassing moment turned out to be the beginning of the most important journey of my life. It led me to Megan and Lily, to healing, to family, to love. He raised his glass. So today, I'm thankful for second chances. I'm thankful for children who see what adults often miss. I'm thankful for the courage it takes to open your heart after it's been broken. And most of all, I'm thankful for the family we've built, not from obligation or blood, but from choice and love. To family, everyone echoed, raising their glasses. As they ate and talked and laughed, Thomas found himself watching Megan across the table. She was deep in conversation with one of his oldest friends, completely at ease, in a world that had once seemed so foreign to her. She belonged here not because she had adapted to his life, but because they had created something new together, something that honored both their pasts while building toward their future. Later, after the guests had gone and the children were in bed, Thomas and Megan stood on the balcony overlooking the city lights. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, and she leaned back against his chest, comfortable in the silence that had grown between them. "I have something for you," Thomas said, finally reaching into his pocket. He handed her a small velvet box. Megan turned in his arms, surprise evident on her face. "Thomas, open it," he encouraged. Inside was not the diamond ring she had half expected, but a key. "What's this?" she asked. "The key to our new home," Thomas explained. "Not this penthouse. A real home with a yard for the kids, rooms for them to grow into space, for us to build our life together. I've been working with an architect for months, designing a place that's ours, not just mine that you moved into." Megan stared at the key, then back at Thomas. "You did this for us. For all of us. I want a fresh start, Megan. Somewhere that belongs to both of us equally, that we build together from the ground up." Tears filled her eyes. "I love you, Thomas Grant." "I love you too, Megan Collins." He took a deep breath, then dropped to one knee, pulling a second smaller box from his pocket. "And I was hoping you might consider becoming Megan Grant." He opened the box to reveal a ring, elegant and understated, with a sapphire surrounded by small diamonds. "Not because you need my name or my protection, but because I want the world to know that we've chosen each other, that we're a family in every sense of the word." Megan's tears flowed freely now. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes to all of it, the house, the name, the life. Yes to you, Thomas. Always yes to you." He slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her close, sealing their promise with a kiss. Inside the penthouse was quiet, the remnants of their Thanksgiving celebration still visible. Dishes waited to be washed, leftovers, to be stored furniture, to be returned to its proper place. The ordinary tasks of family life, once meaningless to Thomas, now filled with purpose and joy. On the refrigerator door, held by magnets, was Lily's latest drawing. 4 stick figures stood hand in hand before a house with a chimney and a large tree. "My family," the childish handwriting proclaimed. Thomas looked at it over Megan's shoulder and smiled. From a chance encounter in a supermarket to this moment, their journey had been unexpected, sometimes painful, but ultimately beautiful. "Happy Thanksgiving, Megan," he murmured against her hair. "Happy Thanksgiving, Thomas," she replied, her voice full of promise for all the holidays yet to come. 2 years later, Dorothy was working her usual shift at Westfield Market when she noticed a familiar family at the checkout line. Thomas Grant, the man who had once bought an $80 turkey without blinking, was now teaching his son how to count out change for their groceries. Beside them, Megan Grant stood with her daughter, both of them smiling at the scene. Dorothy remembered that Thanksgiving 2 years ago, the embarrassment and pain on Megan's face when she couldn't afford a turkey, the way she'd fled the store in tears. She remembered Thomas's haunted eyes as he watched her go, something awakening in him that had been dormant since his wife's death. Now here they were, a family, whole, happy. As they passed her register, Thomas nodded in recognition. "Happy Thanksgiving, Dorothy." "Happy Thanksgiving to you all," she replied, watching as they walked out together, the children skipping ahead, Thomas and Megan following hand in hand. Outside, the first snowflakes of the season began to fall, dusting the world in white promise. Dorothy smiled to herself. In her 30 years at Westfield Market, she'd seen thousands of customers come and go, witnessed countless moments of ordinary life. But few had been as powerful as the one that had unfolded at her register 2 years ago, when a little boy had noticed a mother's pain and spoken the truth that adults too often overlooked. "Dad, she can't buy a Thanksgiving turkey for her child." Simple words that had changed lives forever. A reminder that sometimes the greatest love stories begin in the most unlikely places with the most painful words. That families aren't just born, they're built one act of kindness, one leap of faith, one moment of honesty at a time. And sometimes they start with a turkey.